It weighs roughly 22 pounds, and almost all of it is solid gold. The golden funerary mask of Tutankhamun is the most recognized object ever pulled out of the ground. You have seen that calm golden face 1,000 times. On textbooks, on museum posters, on the side of a coffee mug, the blue striped headdress, the cobra rearing on the brow, the dark inlaid eyes that seem to look slightly past you. For 100 years, it has been the face of ancient Egypt itself. And here is the strange part. A growing line of evidence suggests that beautiful golden face was never sculpted for the boy in the coffin. The most famous face in human history may not be his face at all. Someone else may have looked out from behind that gold first, and the marks of that other person may still be hiding on the metal, in plain sight, where almost nobody thinks to look. I make videos about the buried, the misread, and the quietly rewritten corners of the ancient world. And this is one of the strangest puzzles in all of archaeology. So here is what I want to give you in the next few minutes. First, the real story of the mask and the unknown boy it was placed over. Second, the actual physical clues that made one researcher doubt everything. And third, the honest other side, the experts who say the whole theory is wrong, so you can decide for yourself who has the stronger hand. Start with the boy himself, because almost nothing about Tutankhamun matched his fame. In his own lifetime, he was a minor king. He took the throne as a child, somewhere around 9 years old, in a kingdom still reeling from chaos. His likely father, the pharaoh Akhenaten, had torn Egypt apart by trying to erase the old gods and force worship of a single sun disk. Temples were shut. Priesthoods were gutted. When that experiment collapsed, a small boy was handed the wreckage and told to put it back together. His reign was short, maybe 9 or 10 years, and then he was gone before 20. Later kings tried to scrub his name from the record because of his family ties to the heretic pharaoh. For more than 3,000 years, Tutankhamun was a footnote, a forgotten name on a broken list of rulers. Then came November of 1922. A British archaeologist named Howard Carter, after years of digging in the Valley of the Kings and finding nothing, broke through into a sealed corridor. Behind it lay a tomb that grave robbers had somehow mostly missed, packed with gold, chariots, thrones, and jewelry. Deep inside, nested in a series of golden coffins, lay the mummy of the boy king, and across his face rested the mask. The forgotten footnote became the most famous Egyptian who ever lived. Think about that contrast for a moment. He was nobody in life, and immortal in death, and the object that made him immortal may be the one thing in that tomb that was never truly his. Look closely at the mask, because the craftsmanship is staggering. It is built from 2 sheets of beaten gold, the metal running between 1.5 and 3 millimeters thick, hammered and joined into a single shining shell. The whole thing weighs about 10 kilograms, a little over 22 pounds of nearly pure gold, the kind of mass you feel in your arms before you understand it with your eyes. The face is smooth and serene, polished to a soft glow. The headdress, the nemes, falls in blue and gold stripes made from glass paste set into the metal. The eyes are white quartz and black obsidian. The brows and the long eyeliner inlaid with deep blue lapis lazuli, a stone that did not come from Egypt at all, but was carried thousands of miles across deserts and mountains from the distant mines of Afghanistan. On the forehead sit the vulture and the cobra, the goddesses Nekhbet and Wadjet, one ruling over the south and one over the north, rising from the brow to guard the wearer of the 2 lands. Across the broad chest spreads a wide collar of more glass and colored stone, row upon row of beads worked into the gold. Down the back and over the shoulders run 12 lines of carved hieroglyphs, a passage from the Book of the Dead, known as Spell 151, written as if the gods themselves were speaking to the dead king, naming his face, his eyes, his brow, and binding each part to a protecting deity. That was the whole purpose of the object. It was not decoration. It was a machine for the afterlife. A perfect golden face the gods would recognize so the king could pass safely through the dangers of the underworld and live forever. Every gram of it was meant to carry one specific dead ruler across that threshold. So the obvious assumption, the one held for almost a century, is simple. This was made for Tutankhamun, sealed with Tutankhamun, found with Tutankhamun, case closed. Except the case did not stay closed. Around 2015, the British Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves began studying high-resolution images of the mask and the rest of the tomb, and he kept noticing details that did not sit right, things that did not fit a boy who died young. The tomb itself was the first crack. For the most magnificent object of the most lavish burial in history, Tutankhamun was buried in a strangely small and rushed grave. The tomb is cramped, more like the resting place of a noble than a king. The paint on the walls shows brown spots, evidence the plaster was still drying when the chamber was sealed, a sign of a hurried funeral. Why the rush? Why would the burial of a pharaoh, with the most magnificent mask ever made, be crammed into a tomb that looks borrowed and finished in a panic? Reeves began to suspect that a lot of what filled that tomb, maybe even the mask, had not been made for Tutankhamun at all. It had been pulled from somewhere else and repurposed in a hurry when a young king died unexpectedly. Then came the detail that started the whole argument. The ears. The mask of Tutankhamun has pierced ears, 2 small holes drilled clean through the gold to hang earrings. That sounds minor until you know the pattern. In royal Egyptian art, adult kings are almost never shown wearing earrings. Pierced ears on official masks and statues belong overwhelmingly to women and to children, not to grown male pharaohs at the height of their power. Reeves looked at those small holes and saw something that pointed away from a grown king and toward a queen or a ruler who held the throne as a woman. On the actual mask, those holes were even covered over with thin gold discs, as if someone had tried to fill in and hide a feature that no longer fit the new owner. The rushed tomb was suspicious. The pierced ears were a fingerprint. But the ears were only the first clue. The real shock was waiting in the writing. Look at the cartouche on the mask, the oval frame that holds a royal name in hieroglyphs. Reeves and others studying the surface argued that the cartouche showed signs of alteration, that underneath the name of Tutankhamun, faint traces of an earlier name had been worked over, scraped back, and replaced. And the name they read beneath was not a man's name at all. It was Ankh-Heperur Nefer-Neferutin. That regal name belongs to a shadowy ruler from the very end of the Akhenaten period, a king who governed under a throne name yet was written about, in some texts, with female grammar. Many scholars link that figure to Nefertiti herself, the legendary queen with the famous painted bust now in Berlin, ruling in her own right as a living king. It needs to be said plainly that this is not settled. Even the identity of Nefer-Neferutin is fiercely debated, and some Egyptologists think the ruler behind that name was someone else entirely, not Nefertiti at all. But if Reeves is reading the worn cartouche correctly, the implication is enormous. The golden face of Egypt was first made for that vanished queen, and after she disappeared from the record, it was quietly reassigned to the boy who came next. The gods would never know the difference, the argument goes, because the spells stayed in place. Only the name on the front was changed. There was more. Researchers pointed out that the mask was made in 2 distinct pieces, and that the gold of the face is a slightly different alloy from the gold of the rest. The face, measured at about 23 carats, and the body of the mask at a slightly higher purity. Reeves read that small difference as a join, a sign that one face had been lifted off and another set in its place, while the original feminine ears were left behind by mistake. Put the pieces together and you get a clear, almost cinematic story. A queen ruled, then died or fell, and her glittering funeral gear sat finished and waiting. Then a child pharaoh died young, with no grand burial of his own prepared. So his handlers raided what was already made, swapped the face, recut the name in the cartouche, capped the telltale ears with gold discs, and rushed the boy into a small borrowed tomb. Now here is the honest part, the part the sensational versions skip. Many serious Egyptologists do not buy this at all, and their case is strong. The conservator who actually cleaned and restored the mask, A German metals expert named Christian Ekman handled it up close during the 2015 repair after the beard was knocked off and glued back with too much epoxy. He stated flatly that the two-piece construction is simply the normal way these masks were built, not a sign of a swap, and that he found no real evidence the face is foreign gold joined on, and no clear proof the cartouches were recut. Critics add another point that is hard to wave away. If the mask had truly been remade from a woman's burial gear, then the long protective spell carved across the back, the one that names the dead king part by part, should also have been altered to fit a new owner, and those lines show no such editing at all, and the pierced ears may prove nothing. The mummies of Tutankhamun and of other kings were themselves found with pierced ears, so showing the holes on a royal portrait need not point to a woman. The theory is striking, but it remains a theory, not a verdict. So step back and weigh what it would mean if Reeves is right. The single most iconic artifact of the ancient world, the golden face printed on 1 million postcards and museum tickets, would be a hand-me-down, a queen's mask. Hastily edited for a boy who was never supposed to need it yet, it would explain the cramped tomb, the brown spots of paint that never had time to dry, the sense of a funeral thrown together in a matter of weeks. It would mean the face we all picture when we say the word pharaoh is not really the face of Tutankhamun. It is the borrowed mask of someone the later world tried hard to scrub from memory, and it would turn the calmest object in archaeology into a record of one very chaotic stretch of days, when a dynasty was unraveling and a dead child had to be buried with whatever gold could be repurposed in time. It would also mean that for 100 years, the crowds filing past the glass in Cairo have been staring into the wrong person's eyes. Even if you doubt every detail, the mere fact that experts can stand in front of the most studied object on Earth and read its surface so differently tells you how much we still do not know about that tomb. And there is one detail that keeps the whole thing from resting. If that mask really was first made for Nefertiti, then where is Nefertiti? Her tomb has never been found. Her body has never been confidently identified among the royal mummies. Her body, one of the most commanding women of the ancient world, simply disappears from the record, leaving a famous face on a painted limestone bust and, just maybe, a borrowed golden mask. Reeves took his idea one step further and argued that her burial might lie hidden behind the very walls of Tutankhamun's tomb, sealed in chambers no one had ever opened. To test it, teams brought ground-penetrating radar into the burial chamber and swept the painted north and west walls. The first round of readings, around 2015 and 2016, seemed to tease at empty space, and even traces of metal and organic material behind the plaster, and for a moment, the world held its breath. But later, more careful surveys with stronger equipment came back the other way and concluded those early signals were most likely false echoes from the rock, with no clear hidden rooms at all. The idea remains unconfirmed, the queen still missing somewhere in the Valley of the Kings. So, that is the puzzle. The most famous face on Earth may belong to a vanished queen, recut for a forgotten boy, and the people who have held the object in their own hands cannot agree on the answer. My honest read is that the rushed tomb and the pierced ears are too strange to wave away, but the conservator who actually cleaned the gold deserves real weight when he says he sees no join and no recut name. Here is the question I keep landing on, and I want yours. Do you buy the Nefertiti theory, that the golden mask is a hand-me-down from a lost queen, or do you think it was always meant for the boy in the coffin? Tell me where you stand in the comments, because this one genuinely splits people. And if you want more buried mysteries like this one, the misread objects, and the names history tried to erase, subscribe and stick around. There are stranger things still under the sand, and I will keep digging them up.